So, as we embark on the second half of 2025, I can't lie, it has already been a hell of a year. As a matter of fact, the last 5 years feel like one long, exciting, excruciating, yet weirdly safe, yet eerily dangerous ride on a 500-year-old wooden roller coaster. And if you're not experiencing it already, you would certainly be well within your rights to experience burnout at an astronomical level. And if that's not tiring enough, you might also be fighting tooth and nail just to feel better. Unfortunately, you may never feel better, but what you can be is new. Nobody asked me, but get into you.
Let's give them something to talk about. How about love? Love is good. I can't dig it.
The world is on fire. Like, it is on actual fire. There are babies being snatched from mothers. There are protests happening left and right. People are talking about martial law. There are all types of crazy things happening outside. And for some reason, I'm crazy enough to be still trying to create in the midst of all of this madness, as I'm sure a lot of us are. It's scary. And I think it deserves its own episode, so that'll be another day. But if you are anything like me and you are trying to not only get to the other side of some things, but really have a good understanding of who you are and what you are in the middle of this crazy, crazy world and what the next few years look like for us, the best way we can start is getting into you. Right? So when I say that, it's really important as working creatives that we have some sort of foundation of where to start. For us, it might be spiritual. It should be, but if it's not, that's okay. But it should be spiritual, and that can be anything. For me, I believe in God, and I believe in the universe, and I believe in all the things that God and the universe have to offer. So that ranges from the Bible to signs, just like as you're moving about, when things show up and pop up or in your spirit. I believe in intuition. I believe in the zodiacs and astrology and the moons. I believe in all of the stuff because I think it's all part of God. And I think God makes it so that, it's one of the many, 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 many ways that he can talk to us, right? And I start off here because we are embarking on, as we come to the second half of the year, we're in June. And June on the 11th, which is today, I believe, is when we have a full moon. And that full moon is in Sagittarius. Now, also on another day, I'll explain exactly what that means. I'll have some guests on so that we can have a full understanding. But the moon moves, all of the planets move, and sometimes they're aligned, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're inbound, sometimes they're out of bounds, and they move through all of the astrological placements. And so while it is indeed Gemini season, shout out to all my crazy, crazy Geminis. While that's happening, right, the moon itself is in Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius and Gemini, ironically, are sister signs. So they are opposite of each other, but they're also, they can either be really on the same page. They're kind of two sides of the same coin, but with different approaches. But the idea here is that specifically on June 11th is when things get crazy. Truths start to get told. People's wigs get to be snatched. You start to see people for who they are and what they got going on. So that starts today. And then as we move through the month, right? And I mean, for the full moon, right? If your form of resistance is just kind of staying away from the news and staying away from everything else, and you are indeed focusing on you, which is what today's episode is about, the moon in Gemini, the moon in Sagittarius during Gemini season is about, exploring yourself in adventurous ways. Maybe you have a fancy new haircut. Maybe you are ready to start a new fun physical activity that you never tried before. It can be a host of different things. Maybe there's a place you'd like to travel to that you never traveled to before. Maybe you're finally embarking on a new podcast or a new blog. There's something cool and exciting that you're wanting to explore. And that's kind of the energy that you're feeling. If you're feeling that energy, it's coming from the Gemini, I can't talk today. The full moon in Sagittarius during Gemini season. Later on in the month, we have what we like to call a new moon. Now, a new moon kind of represents like cycles. So all of my femme queens, people with uteruses, and women, we all have some sort of menstrual cycle, and it comes once a month. And so it's very similar to like a moon phase, if you will, which is what they used to call it when I was little. That was like the cutest way. It's like, your moon phase is here. And so a new moon is a good time to trim your hair, for example. It's a good time to kind of clear some stuff out so that the new phase can come in. So the new moon falls on June 25th. And June 25th is right at the beginning of Cancer season. Cancers are known to be nurturers. The sign of Cancer is like a nurture sign. It can be very emotional. It can be very caring. It can be very encompassing as it relates to growth and feeling better and planting seeds and kind of all things nurturing, creating, being a part of. And so the new moon in Cancer tells us to kind of clear out some of that emotional baggage that we've been carrying around for the first half of the year. It's telling us to essentially do some internal spring cleaning. And it doesn't have to necessarily be emotional. It should be emotional because, there's a lot that we're carrying these last few years really, but there's a lot that a lot of us have been carrying this first half of the year. So this is the time where it's like we can decompress, unpack some of the things, and allow ourselves to essentially be new. So there's also a playlist that I made that goes with it. So you can find that on Apple Music or on Spotify. And I'll leave those links down below. So the first thing is that the best ideas always come in silence. Sometimes when you completely unplug and when you just have a moment to think for yourself, when maybe you like kind of go into hiding a little bit, you isolate some time, you just take some time for yourself, quiet walks. Maybe you're not answering text messages as fast as you once were. Maybe you've, silenced your silenced your X or your Threads or your Instagram or any other social media. And you take a break off of that. Maybe you're having these opportunities where it's just you, right? That is when the best of your best starts coming in. If you allow your brain to just kind of quiet itself down, and if you just spend some time, just sitting, and not like literally sitting, although that's helpful too, but more like internally sitting. That's where all of your best ideas come from. I know for me, these last couple of years, I can definitely say that I am a different person. And a lot of that is because I had a lot of time to think. I had a lot of time to unpack some stuff, as I've been saying before. I had some time to just kind of reevaluate some things and sort things out. And when I was talking to my therapist about it, we were always talking about my issues to compartmentalize. And sometimes I think everything is part of the same problem, but really, it doesn't always, not only does it not have to be, but sometimes it just simply isn't, right? So like, for example, the bills that are piling up have almost nothing to do with why I don't like the way my boss emailed me the other day, right? Like, that's just an example. Like, those two things, I have a tendency to equate one to the other as if they're part of the same problem, but they're not. And I think the first thing when you are trying to get to yourself and get to know yourself and grow is sorting some of those things out, right? Can I sort out what is important, what isn't important? What are the priorities? What are the things I should be working on right now? What are the things that I shouldn't be working on right now? What are the things that are feeding me in the best of ways? What are the things that are not feeding me in the best of ways? The things that are not feeding me in the best of ways, should I completely throw them out? Should I save them for another time? Do they need further unpacking? And then once you do all of that, and you're going to hear unpack a lot throughout this episode, because that's literally what it is. If you think about your suitcase, when you've come back from a long vacation, you literally have to take every single thing out. It all has to be sorted. It has to go to the wash. It has to be cleaned and hung up. It's the same thing with your brain and your emotional space. And once you're done with that, finally have the ability to see yourself for who you really are and really figure out what it is you want to do, how you want to show up, what does that look like for you, how you want to move. And that's really important. So the first thing that I would always suggest is do some quiet introspective work. That might be journaling. That's always good for me. I love a list. I always like to write it out first. That might even be some mood boarding. That might be cool too. Like maybe after we've done the unpacking of which, then you can start, Pinteresting, if you would, exactly what kind of life you want to manifest for yourself and what does that look like for you. The second thing is rebranding. Now, this is my favorite part. Rebranding yourself is hard. However, it can be so fun. Let it be fun. So I'm 37 now. So at 35, I tell a story all the time because I don't know, something about 35. Maybe it was because I was getting married that year. Maybe because, I don't know. But 35 was really cool for me. I would say about January, I had a quick weave in. And so I'm sure everyone who is listening knows what a quick weave is. But if you don't know, quick weave means that they braid it down and they glue like a stocking cap to your head. And then they kind of glue on the hair pieces so that it just, looks like a regular weave, but it doesn't take as long. And they just glue it to attach your head. And I had a quick weave in, and when I took it out, there was like so much glue in my hair, so much glue in my scalp. So it took the taking out process was really quite annoying. And by the time I took it out, it was like maybe February. And so now we were approaching my birthday. And in addition to approaching my birthday, I was also getting married that July. So my birthday's in March. The wedding was in July. And I kept saying to myself, all right, originally I want this big, elaborate Veronica Lake style, big, wavy curl, old Hollywood glam hair for my wedding. But when I was looking at the texture of my hair, it was just kind of thinning a little bit. It wasn't as strong as it had once been. My scalp was doing a lot of weird stuff. And just, if I'm being honest, it's just, I wasn't taking care of it. It just wasn't looking healthy. It was longer, not nearly as long as it's ever been. But, I'd say like maybe shorter length, like not for real like that. But just kind of, it just looked weak and mangly and not the shiny thickness that I'm used to. So I was ready for a change, especially for my birthday. And 35, I consider like a milestone. And I was like, I just had a weave in. I don't want to sew in. I need to sleep, right? Like I can't handle too much tightness on my head right now. I also want to give my scalp a break. And I want a new healthy look. And I said, you know what? I'm going to cut this thing. Let's cut into a bob. I love a good bob. And I was like, all right, if we do a bob now, what are you going to do for your wedding? And I thought about it, and I thought about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do headpieces. And it was like, we love a good headpiece. And it's like, all right, I found them. Did my Googles. I had found all the best places to get the proper headpieces. I purchased them, and I was like, all right, we're cutting this hair. Let me tell you, I cut that bob. And then I think the next week I went and got myself a tooth gem. And then by the time it got to my birthday, I had new tattoos, a new piercing, and it felt great. It felt great. It's like, I have always been this kind of girl. I think when you're much younger and you're under the guise of your parents, they want you to stay youthful forever. They want you to keep your innocence. And I can understand that, especially now being a new mom, which, by the way, if you hear any coos and oohs and ahs or any other fun noises in the back, that's my baby, who I think he just likes when I record. So I'm going to let him stay. Your parents want you to stay youthful, and they want to kind of preserve your innocence, which I can kind of understand to a degree, but they kind of made it seem like, why would anybody want to cut your hair? Why would anybody want to dye your hair? Why does any black woman ever want to be blonde? Like, why would you ever tattoo your body? It's a sin, like, it's just sinful. Like, God made you perfect the way, like, all these kind of like really negative and just kind of harsh, in my opinion, connotations about appearance, and it needs and has to be a certain way. And for years I was like, I would love to be that girl that just cuts it and colors it, just gets to try new stuff. And for some reason I got to 35 and was like, hey, I'm grown. Like, I can absolutely do that. And I am kind of that girl. And let's try it. Baby, I got that bob. I got them nails. I got to them tattoos and piercings. I got to them new outfits. I got me a new, some new sunglasses and trinkets and stuff. And it's like, you see, this is my vibe. And like, once I fully stepped into that vibe, and I'm still stepping into it, right? But once I fully like accepted that that's the vibe that I was at, my energy changed almost immediately. My outfits changed almost immediately. I know for a lot of people, it's like, it's not just about looks, Elsie. But for me, it's like and I had to learn this too. I wasn't always this way. But when I look good, I feel good. I want to show off my outfit. I want to show off my personality. I want to be funny. I want to be in the know. I want to be, I want to participate. I like that. I like when my outfit feels good. I like when I take the time and then have a little, add all the details and the accoutrement and the makeup and the lipstick. I love that stuff. And I think it's fun. I remember, shout out to my friend Ivana, who, when she did my makeup for my wedding and for a host of different things. And I remember when we were doing my wedding trial, she was like, a lot of brides just want a very simple look. And I remember at first I was like, no, I want like drag queen. And of course I got that. I was like, yeah, not quite what I was looking for. She goes, girl, that's what you said. I said, I know. But what I meant was, and she said, she understood. She's like, what you're trying to say, though, is that you like the makeup. You want to be done up. You want to take the risk. I do. Life's too short, right? So it's like, I realize rebranding obviously isn't just about the look, but it's more like, I think my rebrand in that moment was the fearlessness. I was such a painful goody two shoes for a huge part of my life, right? And then, in my 20s, I kind of like took a deep dive into the abyss But then after that, you know, I was interested in other things. But now that you've grown up and I've grown up and I've gone to therapy and I've done some stuff, I think now my brain is a little bit like fearless, but practical, you know. I'm interested in, you know, what the curiousness, like what would it take? What would it look like? What does it mean if I did XYZ thing? What is the worst that's going to happen? I feel like that's what when I'm faced with adversity or when I'm faced with something that feels like confusing or like something that's possibly gonna, you know, not feel great, I'll say to myself, like, what's the worst? What's the worst? What's they gonna tell you no? You know how many times I've been heard no before? Like, what is the big deal? Even when I had the baby, I said, like, I don't want the epidural because I just want to see what the big deal is. So that's been kind of my thing lately. Like, just like, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's find out. Yeah, people are going to be upset. You know, my father hates tattoos, just period and in general, and thinks that every time I get a new one, it's in spite of him, which it has nothing to do with him. I'm a person that likes body art. And so instead of not getting the tattoo, because I was afraid of what he or other people were going to say, it was like, I'm getting it because I want it. And that's it. I'm not about to let fear or what other people have to say and other opinions stop me from doing something I want to do. So that was my rebrand. And that's something that you can do for yourself. Maybe for you, it's the other way around. Maybe you have been living on the wild side and now you want to go in the opposite direction. The next thing is style. So for me, style is life, right? And we're not talking about just, you know, oh, I like these new snakeskin Crocs I saw on Pinterest. No, we're talking like your style of life. How do you like to live? Have you thought about, like, so we talked about an outfit or whatever. But what does it mean to create atmosphere, right? I think your house or your living situation, even if it's just like your space, right? Or even if it's just where you're sitting, your office, or where your bedroom is, it needs to be curated exactly to what you like. I was listening to, it might have been the episode of The Friend Zone, or it might have been the episode of another podcast. And one of the hosts was talking about as soon as she comes in for her hotel space, she wipes everything down, and then she has like a little mood light. She has like the scents that she likes because it just allows you to set the kind of atmosphere in the air so that your body can just regulate itself and get to a good space. I think so many of us are really focused on like the outer skirts, but a lot of setting up your atmosphere lifestyle is about what regulates your nervous system. What is it that you like things to smell like? How do you like things to feel? How do you like things to, like, what kind of art is aesthetically pleasing, for example, right? Are you a person that likes big, bold colors, or are you more into soft pastel earth tones? Soft pastel earth tones are not a thing, but soft pastels or soft earth tones, right? What is it that when you see something, when you taste something, when you feel something, your body goes, lovely, love to see it, love to hear it, love the way that it makes me feel. A lot of people do the plants, right? I'm not a plant mom yet. I don't know if I can be a plant mom. It requires a lot of responsibility, and I have plenty of things that I need to pay attention to. But a lot of people like the idea of plants because it does vegetation. It's considered a life source. So when you see plants in the house or even flowers, it just kind of brightens up the room. Flowers I can handle because they don't last forever. I don't always have to I can just kind of take care of them one good time and then I'm done. Or, for the week or however long that they come or whatever. But your atmosphere is super important. Exactly how you like to live. You know, I used to get people, I'm a very unfortunately messy person. Like, I don't mean to be messy, but because of my ADHD for many, many years, it was hard for me to kind of like focus my stuff and compartmentalize like clothes and folding and what goes where. But I actually love a clean space. I love I love for everything to have a home. I love a touch of color, a touch of texture, a touch of pattern. I like it to be a little bit like exciting enough, but still really clean. I love clean lines. I love how the idea of sophistication. My sister and I would like to we always joke and we say that my style is like classy and flashy. It's both and, right? I like things to be just a certain way. And I've realized that about myself, even in the listening, right? There are some times when it's like in the car, if I have to go, let's say I'm going to a party, right? Or I'm going to some sort of celebration. While I'm driving, I want to listen to something that's exciting, that I'm singing along, I'm jumping along, I'm having a great time. And that kind of sets my atmosphere. Even if I'm coming home from like the club or another party, now I want to wind down. So now I want to listen to my smooth and classic R&B that I'm still singing along to, but it now calms me down and kind of gets me in the space for, you know, turning down for the evening. I think that's also why a lot of people, first thing in the morning, they wake up, they have their diffuser going, they make their tea, they set their intentions for the day. It might be biblical, it might be they do a journal prompt, it might be anything. So just to kind of get their mind right, this is where stretching comes in, and then top of yoga. You want to get, the point of getting into you is a lot of it is about learning your body, learning what is good for my nervous system, what is good for my overall working pattern, right? Am I a person that can handle loud noises first thing in the morning, a lot of scream? Not necessarily. I love trash television like the next person. But right now I'm in the space of like certain movies, certain things, I can't have it on my spirit. It lives on me. And I need like happy, especially with what's going on outside, you know, really taking the time to learn, hey, my body cannot handle that. My brain cannot handle that. My heart cannot handle that is really important. And so as you're listening to this, I hope this encourages you to just kind of write down some things that you like, pay attention to the things that you don't like. What are some of the things that you can change? And as you're doing that, recognize that this is a process. Getting to know yourself, as fun as it is, as eye-opening as it is, it takes some time. I'm 37, and I don't think I've learned this much about myself, you know, ever, honestly, until it was this part of my life. It started at 35. And, you know, I just really kind of sat in some things a little bit. I think I'd like started to baby step my way and break off a little piece of this, a little piece of that, bit by bit. But fully understanding myself hasn't come, I would say, until after the baby. And that was 2 months ago. The process of growing the baby, the process of him coming, I feel like I'm getting to know myself more and more and more. When I got married, for sure, there was a lot of, you know what, I don't really like this. I don't really operate this way. There was a lot of, I remember during that season of me getting married, or even after of such, I kept hearing a lot of, well, you know how you are, right? So like I did a show right after I got married, and it's the first time I had ever like wanted to perform outside by myself, singing wise, because I'm a little insecure about my singing. But my husband helped me, and we like made a set list, and you know, I mixed it and figured out how I wanted it to go. And I remember I invited my dad and a host of other people. But when we talked about it later on, you know, I was asking him like how he liked the show. He's like, well, I didn't know what to expect because you know how you are. And like that phrase right there, I feel like, you know, when you are growing up, you act a certain way, you do certain things, and until you find yourself and mature and, you know, figure out if that's the right way for you, if it's the thing that is supposed to serve you the best way, people will hold you to what they know you as or what they thought you were, or, you know, how they thought you acted. And it's not always positive. Sometimes it's just kind of like, this is who you are, this is who she is, and they kind of leave it at that. And that pigeonhole doesn't allow you to kind of grow or explore. You start to believe that that's who you are. Like for years, it was just kind of like, I'm just messy. Like everyone's just going to have to deal with the fact that, you know, they'll come to my house and there'll be things all over the place. But that's really not necessarily true. It's more like my brain is fuzzy. And sometimes if it's too messy, it's overwhelming for me. Or, as it relates to like shows and stuff or even planning or whatever, I think I don't really know what warranted that statement, because I can't remember a time that I had a show that I produced by myself and then the response, you know, that it was sloppy or that it was not well done or that it was missing something. A lot of times the things that I've produced and it didn't come to fruition wasn't because of something that I did. It was because of something that wasn't right on the back end or something didn't come out the right way. But I'm saying all this to say that you really have to take your time to figure out who you are and what you want to do and how you want to approach it. And if there are things that you don't like, right? Like I don't love to hear that, you know, people don't know what to expect because I'm disorganized or I'm messy or I'm whatever. And it really isn't about them. You have to make things for yourself. But, you know, when you go back and you peel back some of those layers, why do people feel like that? How do they get to this conclusion? What are we even talking about? Is that something that is me, or is that a trauma response that's happened well before? And getting to know yourself and really getting into you takes a lot of time. And sometimes it's not easy. And sometimes it requires patience and some self-understanding and some grace, you know, and that can be daunting, especially if there's a lot of hurt that comes with who you are, but it's all right. Healing it can be fun. It is difficult, but healing allows you to kind of do some new things. And I think we want to do new stuff, but sometimes it's hard to do it. Sometimes it's hard to have the courage to want to do new things, because you just don't want to fuck it up. You don't want to fuck it up. You don't want to be disappointed. You don't want people to see you as a failure. You don't want to hear that I told you so. I get on this podcast once every 6 months after not doing an episode, and I get on here and I apologize down to my socks about, you know, sorry I haven't been consistent, and sorry I haven't done this, and sorry I haven't done that. And I am sorry, but also life is happening. I'm still learning about myself. I'm still learning about exactly how to produce a podcast by myself so that it's cost efficient. And eventually, yeah, I will go back to a producer that can do it all for me. But right now, it's me. I have all the stuff and I'm still learning how to do it. And I think we live in an age where everything is instant, constant, right? Like you can Google, you need to know, how do you make the color orange? If you didn't already know it already, you can go to Google, type it in, and they'll tell you what to do. If you wanted to eat something and you wanted it to be heated up quickly, you pipe that thing in the microwave and move past it, right? And I think, yes, that is a part of who we are as a culture for sure. But I also think that we're now moving into the space of what if we just took the time and heated up our food in the oven the proper way, right? What would happen if we were to actually take some accountability, take a breath, rework it, and see exactly what works? I had to do a lot of that. And in my maturing, it's been quite fun. I think there's a lot of things that I've discovered about myself that I really do like. I've also discovered about stuff that I don't like and flaws that I do have. And I think the last thing that I would suggest in all of this is to, really get into some therapy and therapeutic activities. Those are two different things, right? A professional doctor that can, or counselor or a psychologist that can sit you down and say, and you can tell them all the things that you're dealing with, and they can help you organize those thoughts, I think is really, 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 really helpful. There's so many different types of therapy as opposed to just talking or talking to someone and just kind of, airing out all of your things. There's physical therapy that is not just the physical therapy because you broke a knee. They have actual psychotherapy that's specifically physical that you can kind of attack, or you can kind of address a lot of the traumas and your thought processes and stuff. Processes. I'll Google it and really work all of that out. And in your healing, though, in this journey, you have to realize that flaws are not meant to feel like failures. They're not meant to go against you. They're meant to help you grow. They're meant to help you, really be rooted in where you're going, in who you are. It helps embrace who you are. And a lot of those flaws, once you embrace them, can be turned into positives, can be worked with you and not against you. I remember for years, when you would go after college or grad school and you'd have to go to your career counselor, and they'd have you fill out this form of 100 questions of these are the things that interviews are going to ask you, and when they ask you this, you need to have an answer. And one of those questions is always, what are your flaws? What are some of your flaws? And it's as it relates to a workspace, for me, it's I'm always late. I sometimes take a really long time to complete tasks. I will ask 1,000 questions for clarity. There's a host of different things that make me look undesirable as it relates to a corporate space. But the truth is that I take a long time to complete stuff because I want it to be perfect. I ask a lot of questions because I want to clarify. I don't want to do the wrong thing. I'm not interested in getting yelled at. I'm not interested in having to do things twice. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm late because my body takes a second to just wake up and warm up. If I'm not fully rested, sometimes it's I went to bed at 9 p.m., 10 o'clock at night. We're having a great day. I've had I made it to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'm ready to start my day. Some days I can go to bed at 10 p.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. and still feel like I had not slept at all. Some days I can get the 4 hours of sleep and I'm running on 10,000. I also don't like the rushingness of having to be anywhere on time. I think time is a man-made construct, and I think it's a suggestion, and that's another day. But for me, it's the answer they want to hear is I just, I tend to start much earlier, or I keep alarms on my phone, and that doesn't work for me. What works for me is when I'm ready, I will. When it feels good, I will. When it doesn't feel great, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to see if I can see something from a different perspective. I'm going to let it sit for a couple of days and then circle back. That happens with me all the time. When I feel I have the urge, when I feel I have it, that's when I'm the best at it. And so in this new moon season, after you have asked some hard questions, given some hard answers, had some difficult conversations, after you've cleaned out your closet, after you have built the courage up to tell people no and to tell people yes if need be, then take that rest of the month while you're doing other things to really get into who you are, and let's let the healing begin. Let the sun shine in, my friends. Let it come in. Set your atmosphere. Light that light that candle. Hell, buy that braided wig. I know you've been asking for it. I know you've been fiending for it. Do all the stuff that just makes you feel better about yourself, because really, that's how we're going to make it through this crazy ass place. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. And we're back. So this next segment that we're going to do is called Mixed Media. And basically what this segment is about is this is all the time when I talk about all the shows that I've been watching. I give them reviews, and we just talk, stuff for you guys to watch and to indulge in the coming of days. So first thing, I watched on Amazon a wonderful show that kind of embodies exactly what we talk about here on the show, and kind of is what my driving force behind Something Else Productions and Else Inc. And it's a show called Dreaming Whilst Black, and it stars Ajani Salmon or Salmon. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure pretty sure it's not salmon, but it's spelled like that. Anyway, Ajani Salmon, and the premise of the show is, here we have a black man working, trying to get his dreams up off the ground, whilst also working in corporate, and then leaving corporate and moving into more of like a Uber kind of space, but kind of keeping hope alive and keep working and keep itching at the dream. And then, of course, all the trials and tribulations that come with that, right? Which can be anything between finding a love, finding family, finding love or finding family. What I really meant to say was like dealing with family issues, dealing with work issues with people who are not black, and how they talk to you, how they approach you, how you have to almost convince them that the work that you're doing is meaningful and the work that you're doing is something that people would want to consume. And it was just really, really great. It's a quick watch. It's right on Amazon. I think each episode, if it's not 30 minutes, it's an hour. But I loved it. I had a great time. All the cast, first of all, the cast is incredibly beautiful to look at. That's number one. But number two, everyone is really talented, and they just touch on all the stuff. It's incredibly relatable. Similar to Insecure in the sense of Insecure had a lot of that same discussion about like, who exactly am I? Am I supposed to be working for these nonprofit people and dealing with what they got going on, or am I capable of doing more and building? And this show is very similar to that, except it's coming from a man's point of view, but it's also about filmmaking. There's a lot of discussions surrounding imposter syndrome. He has a couple moments where he has these like inner thoughts, and then they show you what the inner thought is, but then they cut back to what is actually happening in reality. So it's good. I love the perspectives. The love interests are also beautiful to look at, and I love those dynamics there as well. So if you're looking for like a fun, it's also British, so that's always fun. So it's which is also nice too, because you realize in watching the show, you realize that obviously Black Americans are not the only people that are having the same kind of thought, and this is just another way that we can all be, connected together, which is also another conversation I'd like to have that the diaspora was, I'm so tired of. But this is really good. It's a really good show. If you have it on Amazon, I would strongly suggest that. Dreaming Whilst Black. The other thing that I watched was Piece by Piece, which is Pharrell Williams' documentary of his life, but it's told as Lego pieces. Like he himself is like the whole show. It looks like a Lego movie, but it's Pharrell and a lot of our favorite artists that are talking on the side of it. It is made for children, essentially. Like it's, I think, rated PG. So you're not going to get any of the nitty gritty, like juicy details that you would get from maybe an adult style documentary. But even at that, it was excellent. First of all, it's beautiful to look at because it's incredibly colorful. It's so fun. They are playing all of our favorite Neptunes and Pharrell beats and songs throughout the movie. One of my favorite parts is when he talks about how Super Thug came about, and Noriega's voice is, that's the other thing that's cool too, is that like all the people who he talks about in the documentary, he has them voicing in the show, which it's not that they need the bread, but I think it's so cool. It's like I'm friends with these people and they can come in, and if I ask them to come do a voiceover for their own voice so that we can hear them, they can do that. And then I really quite enjoyed myself. But Noriega was saying how this is like one part, and I mean, it is a spoiler, but if you're interested in spoilers, just skip over this part. But he says that he was like, who's this guy? Like, I'm believing in him. And Pharrell was like, a lot of people just kind of take my beats and use them. But this third beat, number 3 on this little pack I'm giving you, wait till you get to Miami. He's like, why do I have to wait to get to Miami to hear it? He goes, well, you see, people like to take my beats and use them. I want to produce this record. And Noriega was like, no one's ever talked to me like that before. And so I anxiously waited till I got to Miami. And when I heard it, he heard the intro. And so then when he heard the intro, he was like, okay, this record's crazy. And then, they tell a story of how the song was made. And I had a great time. Also, Pharrell's story is incredibly relatable. It sounds like a lot of us who are young dreamers throughout our adolescence and our formative years, and everything that we hear about Pharrell, from the Neptunes, from NERD, from everything that he's ever talked about, all connects back to him, connects back to his upbringing, connects back to how he got started. And I love that. It's even down to some of his signature sayings. It is literally embedded in who he is. And not for nothing, that's kind of where Something Else is at, right? Like that's literally, if you ask any of my friends that have seen me from the time I was little all the way up until now, everything that I've talked about or everything that I have pushed towards or pushed for has been something that I've been doing since I was little. And a lot of the stuff that I say, it's part of, who I am and what it was. So I just felt like those two in particular were such really great examples of, we're all out here. We're all out here dreaming. We're all out here trying. A lot of it is about trusting yourself and perfecting. Once you trust that you can do it, perfecting your craft and, being at the right place at the right time and knowing the right people, and all that is cool. And then some of it is also taking some leaps of faith. So if you are looking for a feel good, with good music, with excellent cameos, with a little jokes here, with a really good story, Piece by Piece is on Netflix. I had a great time with that. And last but not least, I said that Forever needed its own episode. So we might not do a full episode of it, but I just want to run it back. I did give Marab Broccoli her flowers last week during the what is that called? The Jet Beauty of the Week segment. My brain just stopped for a second. Sorry about that. But I gave her flowers during that section because she just really did a great job. And it's really nice to see her career flourish from Moesha to Girlfriends to I think you guys will correct me if I'm wrong. I believe she's part of the game. And then from the game to Love Is, and then from Love Is to Forever. Forever on Netflix. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Now, typically, I'm not your romance girly. I am, but I'm not. I like the story to kind of really like take me someplace. And sometimes there's a lot of factors with me, right? Like if I don't feel like, if I'm not, this is so stupid, but if I'm not like attracted to the people, it's like, what are we watching? What are we doing? So I want everyone to, when I'm watching a romantic comedy or a romantic series, I want them to hook me. Sometimes I get too invested and it's like something happens and now I'm upset and it's just like, oh, why did that happen? But when I say this show was perfectly written, gave us lots of interesting little conversation pieces, as opposed, like, for example, the juxtaposition between a affluent Black family versus a working Black family and what that looks like without having to tear either side down was just, it's not so monumental that it's unheard of, but it just feels good. She really did an excellent job of painting the picture of these two young people. I love that basically what happens in the story is that it's two friends that were friends in elementary school happen to be at the same party, New Year's Eve party, when they are in high school. Like, let's say, I think junior year, sophomore, junior year. And this is their love story from the time that they meet at that New Year's Eve party all the way up until it's time for them both to go to college. And it was refreshing, guys. It was refreshing. It was young love. It was exciting. It was like she takes you on almost like a trip down memory lane behind what it looked like with your first love. And, you know, when you get those text messages and how exciting it was and how cute it was and the pictures and the posting and just, it's just the space of, do we remember what young love was like? And they said it in California. So this might not mean anything to anybody else, but for me, it's like, it's hot outside. So like something about it just felt like eternal summer love. And anyone who is anyone has had a first summer love, and it is so fun. You're outside, you're taking pictures, you're at this date, you know, you're at the other day. It's just like a really beautiful thing to watch and flourish. And I think I just love the fact that it's a story about how Black love can start. There's one episode, particular episode 5, where the lead male character and his family go to Martha's Vineyard for the weekend or for the week. And she finds him there because she convinces her friend to, you know, go visit her aunt, and they have a big elaborate plan of how she's just going to miraculously find her way and go see him. And when I say it was that episode is the dream. I cannot wait for my children to be of a certain age. And I have gotten to a space now where we have a beautiful house on the vineyard, right? And everybody can come and everyone's letting their hair down. And it's just something cool that we do for the summer. And it's a reoccurring thing. It just was so beautifully done. And what I like about this show programming is that you get every kind. Every one of us is in here. You have the nice, nerdy guy that's really smart, but wants to be, you know, he's just kind of, wouldn't know if I would consider him straight-laced, but he's straight-laced-ish. And then his best friend is like, you know, definitely on his way to being the next Quavo, if you will. Like, he's not necessarily a rapper, but like that type of man. And then his girlfriend is similar to him, but she got a little bite to her. Like, it just, everybody had something. All of the parents that were involved were smart, were compassionate, but they were tough at the same time. It just felt effortless. And a lot of those, it just opened the door for so many useful, productive conversations about what it means to be young, gifted, Black in this country. And I had a great time. I thought the writing was great. I thought the acting was great. I love that we used actors that we know, and we use actors that we don't really know, but this will certainly catapult their careers. I thought it was super interesting, kind of the take of, they have a little bit of freshness, for the teenagers. For the aunties like me, it's like, oh, no, I don't need to see that. I just kind of, not my business. But I think, for the teenagers and for the early 20s that are watching it, it's like, okay, cute, I found it interesting that it was more on the young man to have a little bit of risque nudity and less on the girl, which I thought was really nice and cool. Not to say that, we're not allowed to show our bodies, but, sometimes it's that part of it falls mainly on us. So it was nice that we had a little bit of balance there. I thought his parents were great. Mom was a bit uptight, but if you go back and read, and if you pay attention if you go back and read, like, maybe like the context of the story, and if you pay attention in the top, they say it's like 2018. So this is pre-pandemic, but this is also post Trayvon Martin. So she's very aware about what can happen to a young Black person who is not careful about their whereabouts and about, what time they come home and how they come home and all of that. So I greatly appreciated that discussion. And I love that it didn't turn into a tragedy, right? It just was like, we're going to talk about it and we're going to talk about it head on, but we're just going to leave it at that. And we can kind of revisit what this looks like for everybody a little bit later on, which I thought was cool. I loved that his parents were so playful with each other, and that dad was calm, cool, collected, but also forceful, and just kind of like sticking up for his kid. But there was a lot of discussion about how, he kept kind of undermining mom's decisions in front of the children, which, I think it's just, I think that's a smaller conversation. Like, overall, I thought they were great. I get what the annoyance was, for sure, but I just think what they were trying to say was that he was more of a let the boy do his thing and you and I can reason about it separately. And I think that can just be, that's an easy, we can change that to be other ways. That would probably be a great scene, I think, later on as well, if they have that kind of discussion between each other. But overall, I really had a beautiful time with Forever. I hope it comes back. I would love to see where we take it from here. I'm not sure about the books. I don't think I've ever read the books. I'm not sure if there's more to this story, but I would love to see where she takes it, because it was just beautiful. The soundtrack was beautiful as well. There's new songs in there. There's old songs in there. It's definitely a love letter to California. California is my dream of dreams, for sure. Although, I'm a East Coast person, but I love, the idea of California has always been fun for me. So, it was nice. It's a nice show. Please watch it if you haven't already. And they got renewed for a second season almost immediately. So I'm excited to see what they have to say. And that completes. Also, before I do that, speaking of California, I don't know about anybody else, and I can be alone in this, but I LOVE. Love Mariah Carey's new song, Type Dangerous, with California's own Anderson .Paak, who is not featured, but certainly wrote and produced that song for sure. I love that Mariah is like, I'm going to give y'all a little bit of a new look. She put on a red lip, gave us a little under eyeliner. And I love that about my girl. So that's been really cute. And I think that is about it. We're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back. We're back and it is now time for the lightning round.
Final round.
Nobody asked me, but throw him underneath the jail. Nobody asked me, but don't touch me. Nobody asked me, but I'm tired, Grandpa. Nobody asked me, but that's just too damn bad. Nobody asked me, but y'all were jealous of Andy getting to the bag in The Devil Wears Prada. Nobody asked me, but take your vitamins and your edibles. Nobody asked me, but happy Pride, girlies. Nobody asked me, but free Sudan, free Palestine, Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matters, fuck ICE, no kings, bitches. And that concludes another episode of Nobody Asked Me, but thank you so much for joining us. We were tastefully this week, but you know what? We press on. If you are interested in any of the reviews that I was talking about today here on the show, you can read about them on the blog post on Substack, and I'll leave that link below. Also, please check out the June's New Moon playlist on Apple Music and also on Spotify. Those links are below as well. Subscribe to the Substack, subscribe to the show, like, share, let's talk about it. I think I have a couple of fun announcements next week, and I will see you soon, girlies. Love you. Bye.